Hiya guys, Gary again. I wanted to do a quick video to say thanks to one of my subscribers who happens to be the mother of one of my students in a weird twist of fate. So last week, this was dropped off for me, along with this, by said student who said his mum had sent it in after watching me online. Lovely, a lovely gift, which was very gratefully received. And it spurred me on, really, to do more Mahayana stuff instead of focusing all the time on challenging the narratives around the early Buddhist texts and the early canonical materials, which you will know is what I've been doing a lot of for kind of the past 3-4 months. That's been the majority of my time, the majority of the content, I think it's fair to say. So what is this book? So you can see, actually, the Infinite Life Sutra, Essentials and Commentary and Explanations. So it's a commentary and explanation of the Sutra of Immeasurable Life, or the Infinite Life Sutra, which is a foundational text in Pure Land Buddhism, all right? The Infinite Life Sutra tells the story of the Bodhisattva Dharmakara, who is a former king who vowed to create the perfect realm for all beings to reach enlightenment. And the idea is that after studying in countless Buddha lands, he made 48 vows, which are detailed in here, to establish a pure land, hence the name Pure Land Buddhism, where anybody, no matter how flawed, no matter what your character is, could be reborn through sincere faith and recitation of Amitabha's name. Okay, so Amitabha is the name of the relevant Buddha, in this case, Dharmakara. After countless ages of practice, Dharmakara fulfilled these vows and became the Amitabha Buddha. So his pure land, Sukhavati, is meant to be a world free from suffering, filled with radiant light, jewel trees, beautiful lotus lakes, teachings that lead us all effortlessly towards awakening, this sort of thing. So it's a great place without distraction, without any of the shitty stuff going on. The sutra, as I understand it, emphasizes compassion. Ethical living is super important. Practice and the transformative power of Amitabha's vows is really foundational. So the message is simple, it's universal, it doesn't matter about your karma, it doesn't matter about any of that. Liberation is possible through trust, remembrance, and aspiration. This edition by Liu Suyun, apologise for my pronunciation, is actually a series of lectures where she summarises and transmits the teachings of her Dharma master, who is Jin Kung. Master Jin Kung was one of the most influential modern Pure Land teachers, known really for his detailed explanations of this sutra and for teaching from the consolidated version of the text. There's a really good version of this by Upasaka Xia Lianzhu, and that version is widely used across Asia, endorsed usually for clarity, completeness, and it's very, very popular. So through these lectures, Liu Suyun distills a master's insights into what are accessible, practical points of guidance, highlighting the meaning of Amitabha's 48 vows, the nature of the Pure Land, and the practical path of faith that we as Buddhists must take, you as Buddhists. Historically, the sutra itself is quite significant. It likely arose in the Gandhara region during the Kushan Empire, sort of 1st century CE. And scholars have demonstrated that the earliest Chinese translations of this preserve the linguistic traces of Gandhari language. And we know that the Kharoshthi script was already circulating in China at this point. So it means the text passed through one of the earliest Mahayana cultural centers before entering China. Once it did enter China, it was translated more than a dozen times over the following few centuries. And if you watch this channel on the regular, you'll know I talk about Gandhara a lot. Gandhara was a vibrant hotbed of Buddhist activity, a kind of crossroads where ideas from loads of different Buddhist schools met and evolved, and crucially, where the traditional Theravada Mahayana divide begins to break down under examination. And as we know, because I talk about it all the time, the early Buddhist texts, such as the Nikayas and the Chinese Agamas, and the associated Gandhari parallels, already contain what we might call proto-Mahayana elements. So not fully fledged Mahayana doctrine, but the ingredients that the Mahayanists will use to make that. And we see this in things like the Bodhisattva ideal in a really early form, an expansive cosmology, things like seeds of Buddha fields, references to multiple Buddhas, and praise of generosity, merit making, merit transfer, and devotional tendencies. That's really important for the religion side of things. But unlike these proto-Mahayana hints, which are present but not really doctrinally developed, the Infinite Life Sutra represents a fully developed, fully self-contained Mahayana worldview. It's got details about the Buddha field. Dharmakada's 48 vows say a lot about this stuff. A doctrine of cosmic salvific merit. So the soteriology is slightly different, and it's got a mature, expansive bodhisattva path. So it makes it a really early, but already fully formed Mahayana text, and not technically part of the early Buddhist canon. In fact, it's one of the earliest known, fully formed, fully articulated Mahayana scriptures, and it is roughly the same age as some of the Gandhari early Buddhist text materials that we've discussed on this channel and in the comments. All right. What sets it apart isn't its age. It is as old as some of this stuff. What sets it apart is the content. So it's contemporaneous with some late circulating early Buddhist texts, but the doctrinal outlook is markedly more developed. And so it's very different in some really fundamental ways. All right. Now, I've said this before, but it isn't some sort of strange aberration or sudden departure from Buddhist orthodoxy. It's kind of a natural evolution which emerges from the same intellectual religious currents and the same milieu already present in the early Buddhist traditions. I'm going to spend a bit of time, I think, going forward, looking through this and pointing out some ways in which there are developments and there are differences from the way that the material is treated by the earliest communities in the early Buddhist texts, because there is some big difference in emphasis, and I think it'd be really cool to point some of that out. So in the meantime, I just want to say thank you to Arulin's mum for sending this in. It's very, very, very thoughtful, and actually I don't have a great deal on Pure Land Buddhism, so it bolsters my collection somewhat. My sort of stuff has always kind of been Madhyamaka Yogacara in terms of the Mahayana stuff, and of course like the Nikayas and the sort of Pali materials, early Buddhist texts. So it's really nice to have an opportunity to dip in, an excuse to dip in and talk about it, which is where we'll be going over the next few months, I guess. So thank you very much. It's appreciated. And I hope you see this video. Rulin did say that you are subscribed and you watch them. So hopefully, thanks again.